Okay, so welcome to Career Fair Crash Course for International Students, how to talk to recruiters. My name is Lori. I work in the Career Center as a career coach, and I work a lot with international students. So happy to share information for students that are preparing for Career Fair season. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So, just a little overview about what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about where you can find the career fair schedule. We do have a few different career fairs this semester that I want to draw your attention to. We're going to address prayer preparation tips that kind of talk more specifically about challenges for international students and how you can address those. We're going to go over the elevator pitch and how to navigate small talk with recruiters, which is something that as an international student or even as just a regular student, you may not have a lot of experience with yet. And then we're going to cover what to wear at the career fair. And so when we think about preparing for a career fair and actually thinking through kind of the career skills that go along with career fair preparation and developing skills to go into the career fair, we're going to be focusing on our communication and professionalism career skills. These are two of the 8 skills that employers are looking for in candidates, no matter what discipline they're going into. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a software engineer or a pathologist. Everybody needs to have skill set in these areas, and so professionalism and communication are going to be the ones that we're focusing on today. So this QR code, if you scan the QR code, it's going to take you to our career fairs page on our website. These are the 3 larger fairs that our office is kind of coordinating. Now, there's a couple of other smaller fairs that we may be partnering with academic departments on that aren't listed here, but all of this you can find on our website and also in Hire Niner. So our very first fair for this semester is coming up this Thursday, January 30th. It's the STEM fair. That one is going to be focused more on roles and companies that are more related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you aren't in those spaces, that's okay. We have our spring career and internship fair on February 13th. And then we also have a part-time fair, part-time job fair, which is more focused on off-campus roles that are part-time in nature. So that is in March. Okay, so things that you just want to consider as an international student when you're navigating the career fair. The first is that you may have to clarify your work eligibility with employers. So this would be CPT and OPT, so curricular practical training and optional practical training. So make sure that you understand what those two kind of work authorizations are and be able to talk about it and answer any questions that the employer may not know. So if you aren't familiar with what those two terms are, my recommendation would be to familiarize yourself with the website for ISSO. They have a lot of information about CPT and OPT. If you have questions about that, you need to reach out to them. But it's really important that you are able to talk about those options and you help the employer maybe sometimes understand what all that means. You also are going to need to tactfully ask recruiters about their visa policies. So they may not know they're probably not going to know your visa status just by, looking at you. So it's important to ask about those things tactfully. So be prepared to ask that question. The other thing to consider is that small talk is a very common practice in US business and networking settings. And so small talk is kind of when you go to an event or you go to an interview or whatever it is, kind of just like chit-chatting or talking with one person or a group of people about kind of random ideas or just things that aren't necessarily like super important, but maybe going on, around you. So that could be, the weather. It could be something related to, you know, football or whatever is kind of going on in the world at that moment that is very much just kind of a neutral a neutral topic. And this is something that is not common in a lot of other countries. And so the idea of kind of having these like side conversations before getting down to business can be unfamiliar. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what that can look like and maybe how to approach that. And then also consider that you might have to work harder to feel confident at the career fair than maybe say a domestic student. Sometimes in my experience working with international students, there's a concern about just communicating in English if it's not your native language. And so you may kind of have this, kind of in the back of your mind, this might be a concern for you, and that might cause you to feel maybe a little bit extra nervous. And so that's just going to be something that you may have to navigate. So there's definitely some considerations that you're facing, but all of these things can definitely be approached, and we're going to talk about that. So how do you navigate these potential challenges? Well, again, we talked about in the last slide that you have to be able to explain your work eligibility succinctly. So an example of that when you're talking with an employer about maybe a full-time job would be that you're authorized to work under OPT for 12 months after graduation without visa sponsorship. So that is what essentially OPT means. And then if you're in a STEM field, then you would be eligible for an additional 24 months if it's a STEM role. So make sure that you can kind of talk about that concisely. And then think about practicing maybe cultural communication. And so what I mean is just observing how, people in the US communicate and network with one another. So, we talked about small talk. A lot of times when you go into these type of events, people might extend their hand for a handshake. So that's very common. I feel like that is not as common as it has been in the past, just with kind of like coming out of a pandemic, and sometimes people don't do that, but you may encounter a handshake, so you would extend, your hand as well, or even just something like eye contact. In social settings in the U.S., it is appropriate to, look somebody in the eye, and I know that in some cultures that can be seen as a sign of disrespect. So I think just paying attention to those things, go to different events on campus and just observe how people are interacting. Talk to people that maybe are in your classes that are not international students, and ask some questions about that. I think can be, a way to learn. Obviously, you can go on the internet and you can, Google things, and you can put stuff into ChatGPT or whatever it is. But you want to kind of practice that cultural communication as much as you can. And then build language confidence by practicing your elevator pitch with trusted peers or a career coach who can give you feedback if you want feedback. And so, as I mentioned before, in my experience working with some international students, they don't feel maybe as confident about, just having those conversations. Sometimes it could be a language barrier, or just kind of lack of confidence in that. And so, as a career coach, I'm a safe space. Everybody in the Career Center is a safe space. If you want to kind of work through that, practice, talking that out with somebody like myself, we can give you feedback on things that you may need to tweak, or maybe you're doing a great job and you just need to kind of continue to practice that so you feel confident. And the goal is for you to strive for clarity instead of perfection. Even as somebody that maybe English is their first language, it's not always, easy for them as well. So I think don't strive for perfection, strive for clarity instead. So reach out to us in the Career Center if you just need somebody to be a soundboard for you in a safe space, because that's why we're here. And then again, asking about sponsorship gracefully by saying something like, does your company hire candidates on OPT or consider H-1B sponsorship for long-term roles? Okay, so those are some examples of how you can try to navigate those potential challenges. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into some of these. So what does a career fair look like? So some of you may have never been to a career fair before. The way that fairs look over here in the US may be different than how you've experienced them, especially if you're a grad student and you have an undergraduate degree from a university outside of the US. So these three pictures on the screen are three different representations of what a career fair can look like. Now, the ones that you're going to find facilitated from our office are going to be more in line with what this first picture is on the left-hand side. Inside the Student Activity Center, where you have, companies with booths set up, and then students are kind of, at those different tables and talking with those employers. The middle picture is actually an event that our College of Engineering hosts every fall. It's the Engineering Industry and Connection Day. They actually host this outside, and so if anybody is in engineering on the call, this is something that you might go to in the future. And this is it's a little bit more, kind of casual in terms of it's outside, people have tents. You can kind of see, like, even in how people are dressed, it's a little bit more casual. And so it's just kind of another way to make that connection between employers that want to hire Charlotte students and meet Charlotte students and our students. And then the photo on the right is more of what you would expect if you were to do a virtual career fair. We don't facilitate those anymore in our office, but there are companies that do a lot of virtual events on their own. Sometimes they might have their own career fair day or something along those lines. And so you may experience something like that where you're actually communicating with the employer through your laptop or mobile device. So all of these are kind of representations of what a career fair could look like. So, thinking about as an international student, I came up with 5 key preparation tips that I want to leave you with. And so, the first is to really research the companies before the fair. So, there is a list of organizations that we provide on Hire a Niner and on our website. That's really useful. And what you can do is you can get that list of employers. You can do some filtering based on work authorization, based on the type of position that they're there to hire for, based on job titles. There's a couple of different filters that you can use. And so once you kind of have a list of companies that maybe you want to target, then you're going to want to do a little bit more research. So in our career guide, which you can find on our website, we do have a section that talks about what to research in terms of that employer and that company. So, you may want to know, where's the company headquartered? Is it a global company? Is it based in North Carolina? Do they have headquarters here? Or, whatever that case may be. Is it a private company? Is it a publicly traded company? How long has the company been in business? What product or service do they provide? All of these things just to kind of give you a better understanding of who these companies are. And then I definitely would recommend that you prioritize companies that are hiring international students. So like I said, you can filter out in that list based on work authorization, and that's where I would start. Now, if you are attending the STEM fair, we are doing something new this year. We're trying something new up on the 3rd floor in the SAC salons. There are going to be a couple of employers that are going to do these 30-minute kind of information sessions so that you can learn a little bit more about their hiring practices as it relates to students on F1 visa. And so that is kind of something different that you'll have an opportunity to attend while the event is going on at the STEM fair, in addition to being able to obviously talk with the other employers that are at the fair that day. So once you have that list, and you've done that research, then from there you want to make a list of questions that you may want to ask these companies. So what I would recommend doing is figuring out what method you're going to use to kind of keep track of that. Maybe you want to use a Google document, or maybe you just want to notate on your iPad, or whatever it is. But create that document so that you have a place to store that information. And maybe it's just a pen and paper, which is totally fine. And then that way you can bring that information with you when you come for the career fair. So companies are definitely seeking candidates that ask good questions, and that's one way that you can stand out. So, you may find a job posting for a software engineering internship. Maybe the company is looking for, somebody that already has some experience with AI, and maybe you already do. And so that could be something that, you could say like, hey, I noticed that you're recruiting for the software engineering intern role, and I was looking at the job description and see that, you're looking for somebody with a skill set, and I would love, I have that. I've done XYZ before, and I have some questions about that. So, whatever questions that you have, make sure that you can kind of show the employer, whether that's implicitly or explicitly, that you've done that research prior to talking to them. So again, these are some questions that you could potentially ask the employer. So again, going back to asking about their hiring policies around F1 student visas or H-1B visas. Do you consider candidates for CPT or OPT for internships or full-time roles? Again, depending on who you're talking to, because you might not be talking with a recruiter, you might talk to other people within the organization. There's actually a slide on that coming up here, but they may not know what CPT and OPT stands for. And so you may have to give them a little bit more information about what that actually means. What skills or qualifications are most important for, whatever the role they're hiring for? How does the company foster community and support for international employees? How would you describe the culture at the organization, and what have you enjoyed most working about working at that company? And I love that last question. I think, getting an understanding about what drives the person that you're talking to go to work every day, and the fact that they showed up to represent their organization, I think sometimes can say a lot about how they feel about that company. And so maybe you want to tap into what that is to see if that might align with your values and what you're looking for in a company. So these are just some ideas. This is very, very surface. You can obviously go a lot deeper with your questioning and in terms of the types of questions. You probably will only have time for 2 questions. I would say come with at least 3 in case you have time to do that bonus question, because it's possible when you're having that conversation with the employer that some of your questions are just naturally answered. And so you definitely want to make sure that you're asking questions and you're engaging with that company. Okay, so tip 2, preparing your materials, your resume, and your elevator pitch. So if you need resources for resume preparation, I would say refer to our career guide. We also can review your resume during drop-ins. We have drop-ins Monday through Friday from 10 to 3, in person or virtual. You can also upload your resume to Hire9er, and if it's your first resume, you'll have to receive feedback on it before it can be approved. If you RSVP for the fair and include your resume, employers are going to have access to it. So that's kind of, maybe a benefit of going ahead and uploading your resume to Hire9er before the fair. So if it is your first resume that you're loading to Hire9er, you do have to go through a quick review process. Takes about, I would say, on average, no longer than 2 business days. But some tips for that resume approval: making sure that your UNC Charlotte education is listed first in your education section with your major or degree, and then your expected graduation date. When you're describing your experiences, you want to make sure that you're using bulleted statements as opposed to full sentences. And then with your experience, you want to make sure that you're listing the position, the organization, the dates of the experience, and then the bullet points underneath that. So your elevator pitch, this is basically kind of like your 30 second to 1 minute introduction to the person that you're meeting. So we call it an elevator pitch because you can think about the time that it would take for you to go from one floor in an elevator up to the next floor is about the time that it would take you to do a quick little introduction. So this is something that you're going to want to practice ahead of time. I talked about earlier how you can practice with your friends or with family or to get some feedback from, a safe space. Come to the Career Center and we can give you some feedback on that. So your elevator pitch, you can kind of customize based on the companies that you're interested in. So essentially, you're going to tell the person that you're speaking with who you are, what you're studying at Charlotte, or what you studied, if you happen to be an alumni, why you're interested in that organization or why you wanted to visit them today at that career fair, and what types of relevant experiences you may have that relates to maybe the role that they have that you're interested in. And those relevant experiences could be anything from maybe a job you've had, an internship you've had, a class that you've taken, maybe you did a certification, maybe you were involved with a student club or organization outside of class that aligns with the role that you're maybe targeting or wanting to speak with that person about a little bit more. So your relevant experiences can go beyond just, the scope of a job. So this is kind of what a quick example of an elevator pitch looks like. Now, in our career guide, we do have a template that you can use as a starting point. You could obviously also ask ChatGPT or whatever AI you might be using to kind of give you a starting point. But when you are using tools like AI, you want to make sure that whatever it is that they're sharing with you, that you're kind of taking that as a starting point and then writing your own elevator pitch and speaking that in your own authentic voice. So here's an example of an elevator pitch. Hello, my name is Jane. I'm a senior majoring in data science. Last summer, I did an internship in the HR department at Lowe's. I'm interested in broadening my experience, and I read that your company is embarking on a new market in Europe. So what this person did is they included their name, their class standing, and what they're studying. They talked about the opportunities that they're seeking. They highlighted a relevant experience that they had as an intern. And they also indicated some knowledge that they know about the company because they mentioned that they saw the company is going to be expanding into the European market. Okay, so that's just a really quick, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It just needs to be, again, about 30 seconds of just a quick introduction for you. So can answer questions about that later on if you have them. So my next tip is about preparing for small talk. So again, small talk is kind of that back and forth conversation that you may have. Let's say that you're waiting in line to talk to an employer, and obviously you're waiting in line with other job seekers. You might have a conversation with them while you're waiting in line. That's small talk. When you actually go up to the employer and you kind of start that interaction, you may actually start with small talk before you get into really why you're there at the career fair and what job you're there to talk about. So you would start with a greeting, and here's an example. Hi, I'm Lori. I'm a first-year graduate student studying business analytics. How has the fair been for you so far? Okay, so I introduced myself. I said, that I'm a graduate student, I'm studying business analytics, and then I asked them how their experience had been that so far that day. How's your day going? I bet you've talked to a lot of people. And so from there, they're going to give you an answer, and you just kind of do this back and forth. If you can personalize that conversation. So again, going back to questions that you may want to ask the person that you're talking to, how long have you been at the company and what's your favorite thing about working there? So not only are you investigating the type of role, but you also want to investigate the company to figure out if it's going to align with what you're looking for. Make a connection based on your research. So again, I noticed that your company does a lot of X, Y, and Z. So insert whatever that specific work is I've been involved in, and this is where you can mention a class you took, a project you did, an experience you had, whatever it is, whatever the activity is that relates, um, you can mention that. And then stay curious and just be natural, be yourself. So what does a typical day look like for interns? So if you're talking to a company about their internship program, maybe one of your follow-up questions is, can you tell me what a typical day looks like for interns? Or can you tell me what are some of the projects that, interns generally work on with your company? And then when you're closed, make sure you close with action. So thank that person for their time. It was great speaking with you, and I'll follow up with you like you suggested. So at the end of that conversation, there's likely to going to be some sort of next step or action that the person from the company tells you to do. If they don't tell you that, make sure you ask, like, how can I stay in contact with you? Do you have a business card? What are the next steps? Whatever that case is, so that you have, kind of follow up to-do list after the career fair. So again, just to kind of reiterate some of the things that I've shared with talking with employers, you're going to have that brief introduction and sharing of your name. You may have a handshake. So if the person extends their hand, or feel free to extend your hand if you're comfortable. You're going to have that small talk, elevator pitch time. You're going to have an opportunity to ask questions. They're going to answer questions about the positions that you're interested in and any experience and knowledge of the company you may want to know about, and vice versa. Okay. They may ask for your resume, or maybe you want to offer your resume to the employer. Now there will be some employers that aren't allowed to accept resumes, and that's totally fine. Just know that that's more of a company policy than them saying, I don't want your resume. But if you have your resume, which I would recommend that you bring, several copies just in case, then you can share your resume with them. And then to close everything, make sure that you thank them for their time. Get a business card if you can, or ask what's the best way to follow up. So, a career fair fact: the people that you're going to be interacting with at the career fair at these different tables may include HR recruiters, UNC Charlotte alumni, future coworkers, future supervisors, and hiring managers. So you're going to find that you're going to talk to a wide variety of people at these different companies. A lot of the companies like to bring their alumni back because they obviously have had a similar experience, especially if you all studied the same thing. And so alumni tend to be mostly in individual contributor roles, although we do have a lot of alumni recruiters as well. But I think when you're talking to alumni, you're going to find that these are people that are actually doing the type of work that you might want to do, or they're hiring for those roles. All right, so we need to talk about just kind of attire and what to wear. So the next couple of slides are just some images of kind of what you can expect people to wear at a career fair. So what we're looking at here on the left-hand side with the jacket is more of like a business professional. It's a suit. On the right-hand side, still very professional. It's just more of a kind of a business casual look. All of these looks are appropriate to wear at the fair. My rule of thumb is to dress one step up than what you would wear in the office. So if you know that if you were to be accepted into the role that they're hiring for, and you've done some research, and you know that you would be wearing a t-shirt and jeans to work every day, which sounds very amazing to me, then something a little bit more business casual would make sense. That doesn't mean you can't wear business professional or a suit, but if you don't have that, then a business professional or business casual would work. So again, these are just some additional images about what attire can look like. And so you can see all of these are what I would consider very professional looking images in terms of attire. So the biggest thing when you think about what you're wearing is that the fit of your clothing is more important than maybe how much you've paid for it. And so if you need attire, we do have a clothing closet. in our office that I would recommend, if you need a tire for free, that you visit our clothing closet to see if there's something there that might work for you. It's not a rental program. Once you find something that works for you, you're allowed to take it and keep it unless you want to donate it back to the clothing closet. So again, that is available to you Monday through Friday from 10 to 3. It is in person, obviously, in our office, and I'll tell you where our office is located at the end. And then the last tip is follow up. So following up after the fair is really important. And this is a step that I think a lot of people miss when it comes to the career fair experience. So once you've had some time to let everything kind of settle down after the fair, send a thank you email within, I would say, 24 to maybe 48 hours of the fair. It really kind of depends on the day of the week. So most of our fairs are going to be on Thursday. So maybe by the weekend, you would send a thank you email to the people that you talk to, restate your interest in the opportunity that you discussed or the opportunities that you discussed. Maybe, mention something that you all talked about in your conversation. If they told you to apply for a job, make sure that you let them know that you did do that as discussed. And then if you hadn't already, connect with the employee on LinkedIn so that you can add them to your LinkedIn network, and then essentially ask about next steps. Okay. And then continue to, hopefully engage with that individual. So some overall do's and don'ts. When you're just in general, you want to try to smile, maintain eye contact as much as you can and as comfortable as you can. Introduce yourself to individuals with your elevator pitch. Share why you're interested in that company. Be ready to have some small talk. Show enthusiasm. Talk to other students when waiting in line, and just be yourself. I think talking to other students or finding people like from the Career Center to just chat with can be a way to maybe lower any stress that you may be feeling. So if you are nervous, have questions, whatever it is, come find us. We're going to be at tables in each section that have an Ask Me sign. So you can come up to us and ask us, any questions that you may have, or just say, I'm really nervous. I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help. All of those are appropriate, and we're here to help you. Some things you want to try to avoid would be like a limp handshake. So when you shake somebody's hand, you want to make sure that you're kind of getting a good grip on that. Not having any eye contact tends to be somewhat of a red flag for people. So as much as you can, try to maintain eye contact. Not displaying confidence tends to be something else that stands out. So again, being confident, even though you may not feel confident, sometimes you have to just kind of, that adrenaline's gonna come through, and you may just, be running on adrenaline. And a lot of times that's what we do. Make sure that you are also aware of people's personal spaces. And again, this could also be something that might be different for you, but a lot of people, again, depending on just not even a cultural thing. Like I know I don't personally love people that are like really close to me. So just be mindful of that and maybe look for social cues or context clues with the person that you're talking to. You want to make sure that you don't go up to employers without any information. Okay. So make sure you do your research. If for whatever reason you show up to the fair and you haven't done any research, that's okay. We will be handing out a handout that will have a QR code, and it will take you to our website where you can do a little bit of research. You want to also make sure that you're not talking about salary. That's something that is actually discussed towards the end of an interview process. Excuse me. So it doesn't make sense to have that discussion at the career fair. And then, try not to go to an employer table with a friend, because sometimes when people do go in groups with friends, it can be hard to stand out. So, make sure that you're doing everything that you can to try to stand out. Okay, so connecting with us, again, we are, so we're in the Atkins Annex, which is next to the Atkins Library. It's in the same building as the library, but we're to the right-hand side. So the only way to access us is from an outside door. And so you'll see a sign that says Atkins Annex. We're across from the Center for Graduate Life and Learning. Our website is career.charlotte.edu. You can follow us on social media. Our handle is at Charlotte Career Center. And then, like I mentioned, we have drop-ins Monday through Friday from 10 to 3. You can get immediate help. You don't need an appointment. These are good for like 10 to 15-minute conversations, or if you want to visit our clothing closet or you want to use our photo booth, you can drop in anytime during the day. We're here to help you. And then with drop-ins, we also offer the virtual option as well. So that is all that I have for you today. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to stop the recording and we'll go into some questions.